Imagine sitting in your car on a dark winter evening, stuck in traffic, when suddenly every light around you starts to flicker and die. Street lamps go dark, buildings plunge into blackness, traffic signals vanish. In seconds, an entire city, then an entire region, disappears into darkness. This isn't the plot of a disaster movie. This actually happened to 30 million people on November 9, 1965, and it all started with something as simple as a broken switch. But what if I told you that today, with the smart technology in our pockets and homes, this massive blackout would never have happened? What if our modern power systems are so intelligent they can see problems coming hours before they strike, and fix themselves faster than you can blink? This is the story of the night the lights went out, and how today's amazing technology would have kept them on. Picture this. It's November 9, 1965, rush hour in New York City. Dan Ingram, a popular radio DJ, is playing Jonathan King's "Everyone's Gone to the Moon" when something weird starts happening. The song sounds slow, like someone is gradually turning down the speed on a record player. The commercial jingles that follow sound sluggish too. Ingram jokes that the song was in the key of R. He doesn't know it, but he's accidentally recording one of the most important moments in American history. The music is slowing down because the entire power system is dying. 6 minutes before the lights go out completely, the electrical frequency has dropped so low that every motor and machine is running in slow motion. It's like watching a giant machine wind down before it stops forever. But here's the amazing part. If this happened today, our smart power systems would have seen it coming and stopped it before Dan Ingram's music ever slowed down. The real trouble started 300 miles away at a huge power station near Niagara Falls in Canada. At 5:16 in the evening, when everyone was turning on lights and cranking up the heat against the cold November air, a safety switch was set wrong. This switch was supposed to protect the power lines, but instead it became a trigger for disaster. When that switch flipped, it was like pulling one card from the bottom of a house of cards. The electricity that was flowing through that line had to go somewhere else, so it rushed into other power lines. But those lines couldn't handle the extra load. One by one, their safety switches started flipping too. Within minutes, a wave of electrical chaos was racing across the Northeast like a wildfire. In 1965, the people running the power system were flying blind. They had no way to see what was happening across the vast network of power lines and stations. It was like trying to drive a race car while only getting updates about the track every few seconds. By the time they knew something was wrong, it was already too late. Today's power systems are completely different. Imagine having thousands of smart sensors spread across the entire electrical network, each one taking a picture of what's happening 120 times every second. These sensors are like having a doctor's heart monitor attached to every part of the power system. They can spot trouble building up and send instant warnings. If these smart sensors had been watching in 1965, they would have seen the danger hours before that first switch ever flipped. They would have noticed the system getting stressed as people turned up their heat. They would have flagged that dangerous switch setting. They would have screamed warnings to operators long before anything went wrong. But sensors are just the beginning. Today's power systems have something even more amazing: artificial intelligence that can think ahead and solve problems before they happen. Think of it like this. If the 1965 power system was like playing checkers, today's AI-powered systems are like having a chess master who can see 20 moves ahead. The AI constantly studies patterns, learns from history, and predicts what might go wrong. An AI system watching the 1965 grid would have noticed unusual patterns days before the blackout. It would have seen the cold weather forecast and predicted that people would use more electricity for heating. It would have looked at historical data and realized that the switch at the Canadian power station was set dangerously. It would have warned operators about the perfect storm brewing. Google proved this works in real life. In 2019, they used AI to predict the output of their wind and solar farms up to 36 hours in advance with incredible accuracy. This kind of prediction power means you can see problems coming and fix them before they become disasters. But perhaps the most mind-blowing technology we have today is something called a digital twin. Imagine if the entire power system had an identical copy living inside a computer, a perfect virtual world that mirrors every power plant, every wire, and every switch in real life. This digital copy runs constantly, testing thousands of what-if scenarios every second. This digital twin is like having a crystal ball for the power system. As that cold November evening approached in 1965, the digital twin would have been running simulations. What if electricity demand goes up 5%? What if that Canadian switch trips? What if a power line fails? Every possible disaster would have been tested and planned for before it could happen in real life. The catastrophic cascade that surprised everyone in 1965 would have been just another scenario that the digital twin had already solved. Today's power systems also have something that didn't exist in 1965: protection against computer attacks. While the 1965 blackout was caused by equipment failure, modern power grids face threats from hackers and cyber criminals. The security systems built to stop these digital attacks are incredibly good at spotting unusual behavior, whether it's from a hacker or a broken switch. These security systems would have immediately flagged the weird behavior of that Canadian switch as something dangerous that needed attention right away. But here's where it gets really impressive. Modern power systems don't just spot problems faster, they fix themselves automatically, often before any human even knows something went wrong. The 1965 blackout took 5 minutes to spread across the Northeast. In today's world, that's an eternity. Modern protective systems can isolate problems and reroute electricity in thousandths of a second, faster than you can snap your fingers. If that Canadian switch had flipped today, here's what would have happened. Smart sensors would detect the problem instantly. AI systems would analyze the situation and calculate the best response in milliseconds. Automated switches would isolate the problem and reroute power before the disturbance could spread. The digital twin would confirm everything was stable, and human operators would get a notification that a problem was detected and fixed, all within seconds. Modern power systems have another clever trick. They can automatically reduce electricity demand when supply gets tight. Instead of the system overloading and failing, millions of smart devices, water heaters, air conditioners, industrial equipment, can temporarily dial back their power use in perfect coordination. In our alternative 1965, as the Canadian system started getting overloaded, smart devices across the Northeast would have automatically reduced their electricity consumption just enough to prevent the disaster. Electric heaters would have turned down slightly, factory equipment would have shifted to lower power modes, and water heaters would have paused their heating cycles. This coordinated response would have prevented the system overload that caused the whole mess. Modern power systems also benefit from incredibly fast communications. In 1965, the different power stations communicated through telephone lines and radio, with delays measured in seconds. Today's systems use lightning-fast digital networks that can coordinate responses across vast distances in milliseconds. The renewable energy revolution has created both new challenges and amazing new solutions. While wind and solar power can be unpredictable, they've driven the development of incredibly sophisticated forecasting systems. Modern weather-based prediction can tell power operators exactly how much electricity demand to expect hours in advance, allowing them to prepare and prevent problems before they start. One of the coolest innovations in modern power systems is the microgrid. Small, local power networks that can disconnect from the main grid and operate independently during emergencies. During the 1965 blackout, a few lucky towns escaped the darkness because they had their own small power systems. Modern microgrids take this idea much further, using AI to automatically detect when the main grid is in trouble and seamlessly switch to local power sources. In our alternative 1965, critical facilities like hospitals, police stations, and emergency services would have automatically isolated themselves from the cascading failure while keeping their lights on through local generators and batteries. here's something that would have seemed like magic in 1965: the ability to use social media and smartphones to track power outages in real time. During the actual 1965 blackout, communication was so limited that some people thought the country was under attack by UFOs or foreign enemies. The lack of information caused panic. Today, millions of smartphones would instantly map the scope of any outage, while social media would help coordinate emergency responses and keep people informed and calm. Modern power systems also benefit from amazing advances in materials science. New superconducting cables can carry much more electricity with less loss. Smart materials can detect stress and adjust their properties to prevent failures. Today's power lines have built-in monitoring systems that can spot problems before they become dangerous. Perhaps the biggest difference between 1965 and today isn't technological, it's psychological. In 1965, electricity was mysterious, even to the experts. There's a heartbreaking story about 11-year-old Jay Hounsell, who was walking home in New Hampshire when the lights went out. He had just hit a telephone pole with a stick, and when everything went dark, he was convinced he had caused the massive blackout. He ran home terrified, thinking his childish prank had plunged 30 million people into darkness. This story perfectly captures how people felt about electricity back then. It was a mysterious force that seemed capable of anything. Today, power system operators work with computers that show them exactly what's happening everywhere on the grid at all times. Every component is monitored, every power flow is measured, and every potential problem is modeled. The mystery has been replaced by understanding and control. Even if all these modern technologies had somehow failed to prevent a blackout, the recovery would be dramatically different. Modern grids have battery storage systems that can provide the initial spark to restart power plants, multiple backup generators strategically placed across the network, and automated systems that can restore power in a coordinated sequence. Instead of the chaotic, manual recovery of 1965, today's restoration would be an orchestrated, automatic process guided by AI and digital twins. The ripple effects of preventing the 1965 blackout would have been enormous. 800,000 people were trapped in New York's subways. Thousands more were stuck in elevators and office buildings. Modern transportation and building systems are far more resilient, with sophisticated backup power, evacuation procedures, and emergency lighting that activates automatically during power problems. The economic benefits of reliable electricity are also vastly greater today. While the 1965 blackout caused relatively modest economic damage, modern digital economies depend on rock-solid power reliability. Today's data centers, financial systems, and high-tech manufacturing require power quality that far exceeds 1965 standards. Modern power systems also care about the environment in ways that were unimaginable in 1965. Today's AI-powered grids don't just optimize for reliability and cost, they also minimize carbon emissions and environmental impact. Digital twins help integrate renewable energy sources like wind and solar, supporting the global shift to clean energy. Here's the most fascinating part of this story. The real 1965 blackout wasn't just a power failure. It was a wake-up call that led to revolutionary changes in how power systems work. Every amazing technology we've discussed, the smart sensors, the AI, the digital twins, the cybersecurity systems, can trace their origins back to lessons learned from that November night. The 1965 blackout revealed that power systems needed real-time monitoring, predictive capabilities, better coordination, and automatic protection. In a very real sense, the 1965 blackout created the foundation for all the technologies that could have prevented the 1965 blackout. This leads to a fascinating puzzle. If modern technology had prevented the 1965 blackout, would we have developed all these amazing innovations? Many of the systems that make modern grids so reliable were inspired by the lessons learned from that dark November evening. It's possible that preventing the blackout might have delayed these technological breakthroughs by decades. Throughout all this talk of technology, it's important to remember that the 1965 blackout revealed something beautiful about human nature. Unlike later blackouts that led to crime and chaos, the 1965 event brought out the best in people. There were only 5 reports of crime in all of New York City that night, the lowest in the city's recorded history. Neighbors helped neighbors, strangers shared candles and flashlights, and communities came together in the darkness. Modern emergency systems have learned to harness social media and mobile communications not just for technical coordination, but for fostering this kind of community spirit during crises. As we look toward the future, we can see the continuing evolution of ideas that were first sparked by the 1965 blackout. Quantum computers will make the AI systems even smarter. Advanced materials will make the physical components even more reliable. Future power grids may become truly self-healing networks that require almost no human intervention. As our journey through time comes to an end, let's return to Dan Ingram's radio studio on that November evening. In our alternative timeline, the music would have played at normal speed. The lights would have stayed bright. The Great Blackout of 1965 would never have happened. But here's the beautiful truth. The darkness of that November night lit the way to a brighter future. Every technology that could have prevented the 1965 blackout, the smart sensors providing real-time vision, the AI systems predicting and preventing failures, the digital twins simulating every possibility, the automatic systems balancing supply and demand, and the security systems protecting our infrastructure. All of these innovations were born from the lessons of 1965. Today, we have the technological power to prevent cascading blackouts like 1965, yet we needed that blackout to develop these capabilities. It reveals something profound about human innovation. Sometimes we need to experience failure before we can imagine success. The modern power grid, with its layers of artificial intelligence, real-time monitoring, and automatic protection, represents one of humanity's greatest achievements. It's a system that can think, learn, and adapt, qualities that would have seemed like magic in 1965. Today's power system operators work with tools that would have amazed their 1965 counterparts' computers that predict equipment failures days in advance, artificial intelligence that continuously optimizes electricity flow across continents, and digital twins that run endless what-if scenarios to prevent the next potential disaster. This story of the 1965 blackout and the technologies that could have prevented it is ultimately about human determination and creativity. When faced with a massive failure, we didn't just patch the problem, we reimagined the entire system. As we face new challenges like climate change, renewable energy integration, and cyber threats, we carry forward the spirit of innovation that emerged from that November darkness. Today, in control rooms around the world, operators monitor displays showing real-time power flows, AI-generated forecasts, and digital twin simulations. They work with tools that make our power grid more reliable than ever before. But they also remember the most important lesson from 1965: keeping the lights on requires constant vigilance, continuous innovation, and the wisdom to learn from our mistakes. In radio stations around the world, DJs play music that sounds exactly as it should at exactly the right speed, powered by grids that are smarter, more resilient, and more reliable than Dan Ingram could have imagined on that November evening when his music slowed down and the lights went out. The blackout of 1965 ended after 13 hours, but the light it sparked, the drive to build better, smarter, more reliable systems, burns brighter than ever today. Because of that dark night nearly 60 years ago, we now live in a world where the lights stay on, the power flows reliably, and the grid itself has become intelligent enough to heal its own wounds. The darkness taught us to build a brighter tomorrow.